Hi, in this episode we'll see how to make asynchronous calls to server to retrieve model data from it. Also, at the end of this episode, we'll look into this loading template which is generated by default. So now we need to have server. There are a lot of options for it. We'll go with the simplest solution for now. We'll go with Sinatra. For Sinatra, all you need to have is Ruby installed, and then you're ready to go. But I want to point out that this is not really important what kind of server you have. Node.js with Express, Sinatra, Rails, or some PHP framework. What matters is that we have server which returns some data in JSON format. So I have Ruby version 2.1.1 and nothing fancy in my gem list, right? So pretty standard gem list. So let's install Sinatra and Sinatra contrib packages with the help of command gem install Sinatra, Sinatra contrib. And we need Sinatra contrib to use Sinatra JSON package. Okay, gems are installed. So let's go back to editor. And here I will create a new folder, I'll call it server, and inside of it, app.rb file. Okay, to create Sinatra server, all we need to do is require Sinatra. And also we will require Sinatra JSON. And after that, we are ready to define routes. So we'll define the main route and it will return hello. And that's all that we need to do. Can't think of anything simpler, right? To test that it works, we need to go to terminal and here just run ruby server app.rb. So now our server is running on localhost port 4567. So let's go to browser and you can see here, hello, it works. Okay, so now we need to ship this collection of friends we have to the server. So I'm going to just cut this, go to the server here and paste it into here. I will call this friends. And of course I need to remove this and this. Okay, so now we have in this friends array with friends objects. Now let's define another route. We call it friends, get friends. And inside of it, we're going to return JSON representation of this friends collection. Let's go to terminal. We need to restart server every time we making some changes. Okay, we have, of course, an error because new date is not what we really can do in Ruby. So let's go back to editor, and here instead of this new date here, we'll change it to date strp time. So that will take this string date representation and create the Ruby date object from it. So let's go back to terminal and we run server and it works. So now if we go to browser and go to our friends route, we'll see the response as the array of objects. That's great. Also, if we open development tools and let's look into this get request, we'll see that response is actually the JSON response. Great, that's almost all that we need. So now if we go to Ember starter kit and try to reload it, of course it will fail because we removed the collection of friends, so it doesn't work. So we need to fix it. Okay, so let's go to app.js file and we go to friends route. Scroll down to the friends route right here. Okay, so here in friends route, we use model hook and return collection of friends. But this hook can also return promise. And Ember knows how to handle it. It will wait for this promise to resolve before render template. So it will pause until this promise will be resolved. Okay, to do that, let's remove it and use Ember jQuery get JSON method. And then we provide the address HTTP localhost with the port number and friends. Okay, like this. So now if we save it and go back to browser and reload the page, it will fail. And it will fail because we are making cross-domain request, which is restricted by default. To fix it, we need to add header to the response. Basically, we need to allow cross-domain requests to the server. So for that, in app.rb file, right here in friends, we will make the response headers and we set header access control allow origin to any kind, like this. And we need, of course, to go to terminal and restart Sinatra server. So now if we go back and reload the page, it works. Excellent. How cool is that? So if we go to network, you'll see that we made the friends get request, and it returned this array of objects, and we used it. So of course not everything working fine. So we can see the details, but we do not see age. Because we do not use friend model we defined earlier, we use in just a simple objects. So let's fix it. So right here in app.js, as this thing here returns promise, we can append here then like this, and it will take data. We call it data. So this way we can actually do some stuff with the response objects. So what we want to do is we want to return another array. So we use the map method of Ember. So we iterate through each object of the response item, and then we return app friend create. We're actually creating friend model with this data. So again, we take the response, the array of objects, we iterate through them with the map function and instantiate friend object with this data and return this new array as a model. If you go back to browser right now and reload the page, it still doesn't work. So we can go here and this works, but about pages do not work at all. To fix this, we need to go to friends about route. So here we have the friends about route, and now we're trying to return app friends, right? But it doesn't exist anymore. Actually, we again could make the asynchronous request. So we again can do Ember get JSON, HTTP localhost again, to friends, and then we specify the ID of the friends. So params friend ID. Okay, after that, we will again use then, and inside of then, we will convert it to friend object. Okay, and let's define here the data. Okay, so now we need this route friends with friend ID. So we go to the server, and let's define get friends ID. As simple as this. So what we do here, again, we need to use this response headers. So let's extract it to the before block. I'm gonna just shift it here. And now here, I will just return JSON. I will take friends and find friend by ID. So ID should be equal to params ID cast to integer, like this. So now we need to restart server, and let's try it in the browser. So we have the undefined is not a function, so let's have a look what it means. Okay, we do not have birth, and birth is a part of a birthday. So now we have a problem, and that problem is it happens because, for example, right here where we return this object, we have a birthday, but that's a simple string. It's not a date, so we need to convert this string to the date JavaScript object. So let's go back to app.js file, and here, before we return it, let's make data birthday to equal new date, data birthday. So we convert in response from the server manually to the format that our JavaScript application understands. And we actually need to copy it and paste it here as well. So let's go back to browser, reload the page, and now it works. So we have absolutely the same application. We have the age, name, and about, and everything works fine with the server. Excellent. So the last thing that we need to do is create a new friend. So now, again, we have a huge error if we try to do that. So let's go to create action of friend's new controller here. So here we will do the same thing, except that to save it, we need to make the asynchronous request, the post request to the server. And to do that, we need, of course, the new friend data that we will send. And we also need the friends collection, and I will save it into friends here. And I will remove this add object from here for now. And I also want to make this controller variable equal to this. So I can transition to route later in the then function. So now I want to make the Ember jQuery post request to localhost friends with the new friend data. And after that, when I've done it, when I have the response, I want to take this response, again, I will make it the data. I want to take this response and then push this response to the friends collection. So first of all, again, I need to take this data. Then I need to create the friend object with this data. And then I want to push this new object to the friends. So I do friends collection, add object, this new friend. And after that, I want to transition to route friends, like this. So let's go to the browser and try it. Okay, but first we need to fix the friends new route, because here's where we have an error. So if we go to friends new route, where initially we created the empty object, we just need to really remove this ID because we get the ID from the server. So let's go to browser again, reload the page, go to new page, and let's try to create new user. Click on create, we have an error, and that's an error post not found. So if we go to friends here, we'll see that the post request has been created and we actually sent form data, first name, last name, and about. So everything works fine from the client point of view. So now we need to go to the server side and implement this post friends route. So we go to app.rb and here create post friends. And here we will define the friend object, which is going to be very simple. First of all, we need to have the ID. So we'll take friends size +1. Then we will have the first name, which is stored in params first name. The same thing with last name and the same thing with about. And then best is true by default. And birthday, let's make it date speed time 2000. Okay, so now we have a friend and we need to shift this friend to the friends collection. This emulates the server persistence layer, and then we return this friend in JSON format, like this. So let's go to terminal, restart server. Okay, everything's fine for now. And let's try it again. I'm going to create new user, and I click on create. And as you can see, we've added right here, we made the post request, and it returned back the data from the server with ID. So our new user has his ID and it works, and it has the age of 13. And even now, if we reload the page, it will stay here because now we're using server. So until we restart server, we'll have this user saved. So I hope now you understand how client and server communicate with each other. But that's a lot of work. Also, every time we change route to friends, we assign new request, which is not very optimal. Ember Data allows us to write much less code and also provides cool and complicated features like modal data caching. And we'll look into it in the next episode. Meanwhile, I've got an exercise for you to practice your new knowledge. Implement editing and deletion of friends right here, so complete the CRUD. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is loading state. So when your modal hook returns promise, Ember waits for this promise to resolve and does not render anything until then. And that can create not a pleasant user experience. So let me demonstrate to you what I mean. Let's go back to app.rb, and here in get friends route, let's add sleep 5 seconds. After that, go to terminal and restart server. So now if we go to browser and we go to friends page, can you feel the pain? nothing happens until now. So for 5 seconds we were waiting and we actually didn't know what is happening, right? Maybe it's hang up, maybe it doesn't work, maybe server is unavailable. That's not cool. So if we go to Ember Inspector here, into the routes, you will see that we have this loading route. If we define them, they will be used every time when promise for this resource is not resolved. So let's try it out. So for example, if a route with the path friends returns a promise that does not immediately resolve, Ember will try to find a loading route in the hierarchy above friends that it can transition to. So we just need to define loading template, basically. So let's go back to our index.html file. And here, let's define new template and we call it loading. And inside of it, just let's define loading, like this. So let's try it now. We go back to browser, we reload the page, and you can see loading here, right? That's pretty cool. So and when the promise resolves, loading goes away and we have the actual content. Excellent. Okay, in this episode, we saw how to use asynchronous requests in Ember manually. In the next episode, we'll see how to do the same thing with the help of Ember data package. So thank you very much for your time and see you in the next episode.